Otherwise it'll get a little slow, a little.
All right, so we got to cut off in the middle of session 2 there. Part 3, we're back. We got into a little bit deeper the discussion on friendship with our with our candidates. But so we're going to kind of rapid fire the last 10 minutes or so about just some other topics that we can hit on, and then we'll be off and running with episode 1. So what are some other things that we can touch on?
Software companies to hot girls.
No. The great failed blog post.
I wanted to hit one last point on what we were talking about last, and I think because it's important, you know, but in terms of friendships, there are candidates that I work with and clients who I truly like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would hang out with them outside of work. I do care about them. If something goes bad in their life, I do feel bad. But the thing is, we're really not here to be their friends. We're here to serve a purpose. You know what I mean? And
if friendship developed, then so be it, right? I mean, we're all human beings, and that's like kind of like natural progression of a relationship.
Exactly, but it's nothing that has to be forced or forced,
I want to have like that connection that allows us to work that much better together. But if it doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that I can't still be a great asset to you, and vice versa. We can't work with each other. But that's
people should work with you because you're good, not because they like you.
Exactly, 110%. And I think that probably all ties back into that conversation about what makes a recruiter right for you at whatever point in your career that you're in. But
so other things I think we could talk about, just the software marketplace, like in general, like what types of companies are hot.
Yeah.
What are candidates? What types of companies are candidates wanting to work for? Who are they like dying to like get in with? Who are they over at this point? What types of companies are getting funding? What types of companies are just generally like perceived as hot right now?
And just randomly throw, maybe on the side beyond that, maybe like what specific industries you may be in might require you to relocate. Because some people are in an industry that like companies can't support them in the city.
Like
you know,
that was out left field. Where did that come from?
Relocation is a big thing right now. You know, a lot of people are considering. A lot of people are very opposed to it. But you know.
That was the most random topic change I've ever heard in my entire life.
Random thoughts by Jack Handy.
But okay, so we'll just go with this, I guess.
What about like the benefits of working for like a company like a Yahoo, maybe not Yahoo, but like maybe like a Google or a Microsoft, a really big, well-known company versus working for a startup, What are the pros and cons of each?
And I think also that you bring up that, and as far as like the pros and cons of each, but also just like recruiters fitting into different cycles throughout wherever you're at in your career. I think those companies can also fit in different places. Like, is it really a great career decision to join that brand new like early stage startup straight out of college, or from a career management perspective, are you better off to join a Microsoft, join a Google, join a very reputable, recognizable name that everybody knows is a high hiring bar, or a team that has a high hiring bar, and then use that really to vault your career. And I think the other thing that I always roll around in my mind is physically career management. Like, we say that a lot, but a lot of people just kind of go with the flow. Whenever they're ready to make a move, they pick a company and they go. They don't really sit down to take the time and go, okay, how do I progress my career? How do I get where I want to be? How do I lay out my 5, 10, 40-year plan and get to that at the end of the day? So many people just kind of go haphazardly about it and don't really, you think about these guys are, the people that we work with are capable of managing multi-billion-dollar software projects, but do they ever really sit down in their own time and think about, how do I manage me? How do I manage my career? How do I get me where I want to go?
That's what a good recruiter should be helping them out with, and like bringing it to light. Like, it's not just about this next job you take. We got to like come to terms with the fact you're going to leave this next job in 2 years, 3 years, whatever.
How often do we find ourselves?
Get your next job.
How often do we find ourselves debating over $1,000 or $2,000 in a negotiation whenever it's so painfully clear that the 5-year career plan is so much better? But people kind of get stuck in the short term, and I think it's something we can help out at, but I think it's also providing our candidates with a plan to an extent do that on their own.
Yeah. When did a freaking 3-year stint at a company be like an alumni or a long-term career plan?
It's been a while now.
It's interesting.
It's ridiculous.
When we first started recruiting, it used to be like 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
It would almost be like you almost didn't want to say 3 to 5 years, because companies were like, what do you mean? I'm hiring these guys for the long term. And they're like, okay, bullshit. And they're like, okay, bullshit. But no one said it. Now it's like literally like I have companies that say, okay, if you could stick around for 1.5 years, I'll be happy. It's like, wow, okay.
Yeah. But it's funny, I talked to a guy yesterday who was with the same company for 8 years, and I can't remember the last time that happened.
Yeah,
I've got a guy from AOL from that. He's been at AOL since like '98 or something.
And AOL, I mean, you look at that guy and you're like, well, why the hell would you jump ship? Everyone else has,
Right.
right? So what's wrong with you? That's
Yeah.
like what the market thinks.
And I think, yeah, you see that with a lot of candidates, and I mean, I know a couple of people who, you know, left their, you know, in a couple of cases left like their PhD, joined a company, spent 10 years there, and in today's very fluid, rapidly changing marketplace, really crippled their career
Dinosaurs,
because they had no exposure outside of X company. Instead of taking like 333, their first jobs, broad experience, enterprise, you know, web consumer, and then, you know, any of these spaces, and really taking kind of like that broad shot to their first few years of their career, and then kind of continually growing and progressing it, and they pigeonhole themselves,
Yeah.
where they're only capable, or at least the market only sees them as valuable in this little bitty niche market.
I think it's even sort of that much worse when those people are at those companies for that long and they don't even make any sort of career progression. When they stay as a example engineer for 10 years, don't move
Right.
up, don't do anything, don't expand, and then those people, it's hard to find those guys' positions.
Well, I think candidates now are starting to look at the jobs they're taking in terms of where will this put me for my next job, you know, and that's like, you know, it's maybe not the greatest thing to say, but a lot of times I'll tell candidates, you know, like, look, put this beautiful jewel on your resume, you know, take this job, and then 3-4 years from now when you're looking for your next thing, now you're going to be looking at director level, you're going to be looking at VP level positions.
I don't think that's a bad thing. That's a very honest thing.
You know, it's an honest thing, but to be honest with you, if I were a business owner, it's probably not what I would want to hear, but unfortunately, it is the sad truth, you know what I mean?
I think part of our job is helping
nowadays,
people be
people
realistic,
aren't-
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people aren't working for like business owners. People are working for like a manager who also is part of their own little career. And
Right.
like common in the market is like manager says, "We love you, we want you to stay here forever." Oh, I got to run to another meeting when that meeting's an interview.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I mean, the manager's interviewing, the manager's looking. I mean, everyone's kind of
That's the best
concerned
thing
with their
about
own career. Companies are like machines; they move people in, move people out, and
You know,
they account for that 20% attrition. They don't know who's gonna move, but
And I
it's
think
part of their business plan.
companies don't want to admit it, but the fact is they know it, because I mean, come on, who still has a pension plan?
Right.
My grandpa joined a grocer, you know, right out of the war, and retired there 45 years later with his pension all intact. He was the last generation that did and or ever will do that.
Yeah.
And that was 60
What's
years
long
ago.
term now? People measure their career in terms of like, we call people, they'll say, I'm happy where I am right now. Okay, when's a better time for me to
3 months, really.
call me in 3 months, we'll reevaluate. You know what I mean? Like they look at it that short term. It's like it's about the project. It's about the skills of getting on this project right now. It's not about like being with this company for like a long term. It's not about that at all. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah,
You know, it all-
that's a really interesting point, because I mean, 99% of the people I talk to, they'll be like, you know, call me back in 4 months. What's special about 4 months? My project wraps up then.
Yeah.
People are committed to their team, the 5 or 6 engineers they're working with,
The skills they're gaining
the
at that moment
skills
in
they're
time.
gaining at that moment, seeing that product released, and then they're going to go, okay, well, I can either switch teams or I can switch companies. They're both to
It's
me.
funny. It's almost like an independent contractor tracked in mentality, but within like the world of full-time employment.
So true.
That's what independent contractors, all they care about is like time, money,
Finishing the
location.
project, right.
Yeah.
Right.
They're open and honest about it, though.
Yeah.
As opposed to an engineer.
But that's our job to help them
Like
like.
full-time candidates,
I think
you
they
know?
are honest about it. I think people just don't listen. You know what I mean? They kind of like have to like play the game internally because it's just what's expected. It's like corporate, you know.
All right, we're kind of diving deep again.
Yeah, we are.
We gotta like hit a couple of more topics. How much time do we have left, Tony?
8 minutes.
Oh,
Okay.
we're doing good. Never mind.
Fingers don't work.
So okay, what other things we're gonna talk about?
One of the main differences now that you've been recruiting for both like software engineers in the web space and then also video game developers, just in terms of talking to the engineers, what's like the main difference that you see?
I'm actually glad you asked I don't know. I'd say the biggest difference, honestly, the personality these guys
Yeah.
have. I think the people that want to join a gaming space are more your typical guys that want to join a startup, more outgoing, much more open, willing to take a little bit more of a risk.
I disagree.
Have you seen
Erroneous on all accounts.
Have you seen a difference in calling into these guys though at work? You know, a lot of times, from what I've seen, the guys who work for web companies are a lot more open to taking the calls while they're at work, when the gaming guys tend to take it personally.
I think gaming companies have much stronger biases against companies that would or wouldn't work for. So like you could call them at work sometimes, and they'll be open just like anyone else. But they have preconceived notions of other companies. They
Oh, that
won't-
title sucks.
Yeah, that title sucks. They built this. I don't want to work with that. So they're much more picky.
Yeah.
They're looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks for your input.
So now let me ask you.
Well, I think that just in general, that's a good topic. Is and you talk about you've transitioned between doing more web-based recruiting and now doing more gaming, which interestingly enough, it seems to be coming from a lot of enterprise companies.
30
What are
seconds.
transitions between what are good ways to transition between companies? Like, how do you move from one place to another?
You just do it.
I don't think you get yourself.
Like,
Insightful.
I don't know. I think honestly the way to do it is you don't get stuck working with one specific technology, because then you kind of limit yourself to the market. If you're working with.
It's okay. Where are we at?
30 seconds more.
We got 30 seconds more.
Let's
All
wrap it
right.
up. Let's wrap it up.
Make it quick. Don't work with a specific technology. Keep your technologies open. Work with a lot of different things. That way, if an opportunity comes up, you can make the transition instead of getting stuck with that one niche thing.
Or if it's niche, make sure it's like hot and like.
Yeah, it's going somewhere.
I think we've hit a ton of topics. Tell us, post on the blog what you like.
Me.